Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining in this month's L&D webinar. Hi, nice to see familiar faces. So welcome, Jurgita, for this session. And thank you for accepting our invitation. On behalf of ICF Chennai, I would like to welcome you officially to this month's L&D webinar. So we have people joining from different part of the globe. Wow, Paris, UK. Thank you for joining. And so this session on a very interesting topic and a very relevant topic on the importance of coaching mindset in the era of artificial intelligence. So that's going to be very interesting next 1 hour. And we will have a question answer session at the end. Request you to, as and when you get a question, you can put in the chat box. Myself and Raj will be monitoring it and we will keep track of it. And we'll be asking the questions to Jurgita for clarifications. And this session we have CCUs. We have applied for a core competency CCU. Hopefully, we'll be getting a confirmation. We are waiting for the confirmation from ICF Global. And as soon as we get a confirmation, we'll be issuing CCU certificates. And the process that we follow in ICF Chennai chapter is we give you opening passcode somewhere around the 5th minute to the 10th minute. It is not shared. It is only shared in the chat box. And towards the end of the session, we give another passcode. And if feedback form is shared, you need to fill the feedback form and enter this opening passcode and the closing passcode to get your CCU certificates. Okay, and we don't share passcodes outside of the session. So please don't request for it. And we don't also share it orally. It is only typed in the chat box. So please keep a note of it and make use of it when the feedback form is shared. With this few words, I would now request Raj to set the context of this today's session. Over to you, Raj.
Thanks, Natarajan, and good evening and welcome, everyone. I think it's wonderful to see we did see the registration, such a wide, diverse set of locations that people are joining. And I think really a tribute to this being our last L&D webinar for the year. And also, I think Jurgita, adding a formal welcome to you. Thank you for accepting. Obviously, the topic has resonated with quite a few people, so we're delighted to have you here. Just a quick minute context and background. Our association with Jurgita actually first began back in February when she was part of the ICF Global Board delegation that we were privileged to host in ICF Chennai. And even back then, we were fascinated by the diverse background and set of experiences that Jurgita brings to her role. HR professional, educator, psychologist, D&I champion, and as she likes to call us, a truly global citizen. I think lived and worked in over half a dozen countries. And I think even at that time, she had said, whatever I can do to support the chapter, I'd be delighted to. And we took her at her word. So over the last 2 months, we've been trying to figure out a set of convenient dates, and I'm really happy that we were able to fix this date. Jurgita took time out from a vacation. Her first vacation, I think, after COVID. Is that right, Jurgita? I think you said. So thank you to kind of finalize the topic. We're really looking forward to it. I'll just add one more very interesting facet of, among other things, how committed she has been to spreading the word about coaching and globalization of coaching and the coaching mindset. Lithuania, where she originally hails from, she's Lithuanian. Recently, I think was probably the first country that, along with ICF Lithuania and ICF Global, had a word for coaching officially added to the Lithuanian language. So kind of a tribute to how seriously and how inclusively you're looking at coaching, Jurgita. So I just say thank you and welcome again and hand it back over to Natarajan for a more formal interview.
Okay.
Hi everyone. I just wanted to say a very brief thank you to Raj and for Natarajan for inviting me to be here. It's really a pleasure and an honor for me to be here and to contribute to your learning and development sessions. This year started for me with visiting the ICF Chennai chapter and visiting India. And it is somewhat finishing together with all of you, continuing this journey of growth. So thank you very much for having me here. And I understand that Natarajan would still like to add something. So I just give the floor back to Natarajan.
Okay, thank you, Jurgita. And Raj has already given a brief introduction. Let me formally introduce Jurgita. Jurgita is a seasoned leadership and executive coach with 2 decades of experience as an HR executive in international private and public organizations around the world, such as the European Parliament. In her last role, Jurgita served as a CHRO responsible for EMEA region at a global tech company. Jurgita holds an ICF Professional Certified Coach (PCC) credential, driven to further advance coaching professional and ethical standards globally. Jurgita serves as a global board director for professional coaches at International Coaching Federation. She is also a qualified immunity to change map facilitator and an advanced transactional analysis trainee working towards her CTA exam. Coaching is Jurgita's way to make a positive contribution to a better world. She is passionate about women's empowerment and about helping people harness their potential, be the best version of themselves, and grow into a great leader for a better world. A Lithuanian national, having lived in 8 different countries over the past 20 years, Jurgita now identifies as a global citizen. Since 2017, she is based in Spain. That's a brief profile, and thank you once again for accepting, and over to you, Jurgita.
Thank you so much. And with this, I will start sharing my presentation. So just give me a moment to set it all up, and then we will kick it off. Just thumbs up if you're able to see my screen. Is everything working? Wonderful. So I'd like to welcome all of you to this webinar, and I would like to start it by expressing a profound gratitude for a human connection, because it is thanks to this human connection that I feel part of the ICF Chennai and part of this global community that has gathered here together to grow together this afternoon and this evening. I also would like to express my gratitude for the technology and how we humans have embraced the technology, because that allows us to be together despite of the immense distance that is between all of us. So with this, I'd like to just go back and talk for a moment about the emotions, about human emotions. I'd like to invite you to look at these pictures and reflect, and not only reflect, to really feel what emotions come up to you as you look at these images. And I will be sharing with you a poll where I'll invite you to actually share what you think. You should be seeing the poll on your screens now, and I invite you to share what emotions are coming up for you as you are viewing these pictures. So we start seeing the answers coming in. So far, joy is the winner. We also have many people who feel acceptance, trust, joy. Wonderful. A couple of more answers. Serenity. That's really interesting. I talked about this topic during an event for the ICF Lithuania just probably 5 days ago. And the answers were ranging among these emotions as well. So we see that most people feel joy, and then they feel trust, acceptance, and serenity. So with this, I will end this poll, and I will share with you still the results. You see the results. Yeah. And now I will invite you to look at another set of pictures. How about now? What emotions do you feel looking at these pictures? And I have started the poll, so you should be able to select your answers. Surprise, sadness, anticipation. That's quite positive anticipation. Boredom, disgust even, fear, acceptance. Interesting, an interesting one, acceptance. Interest. Just a couple of more seconds for your answers to come through. And it seems that I'm going to end the poll and share with you the results that you can see for yourself. And again, that's so interesting that what you have been sharing more or less reflects what was being shared by some other participants in a different conference. And I see that there is a mixture. There are some emotions that are quite negative, heavy emotions, but there is also anticipation. There is also interest and surprise. There are some positive elements in there. So with this, I would like to invite you to just stay with the topic of emotions for one more moment. And I would like to share with you that different researchers, different studies are talking about that actually artificial intelligence can learn emotional intelligence. Perhaps it's not there yet in terms of empathy, but it is possible. And especially in the future for the artificial intelligence to learn emotional intelligence. But here I would like to suggest that it will not be able to replicate a human-to-human connection that we need and share. And it will not be able to experience and therefore to share an authentic human experience. And what experience? Well, of course, it's about, let's just look at that, to be born, to give birth, to love, to grieve, to cry, to lose a loved one, to die. And let me share a daring statement. It simply has no soul. So that's the question that you already see on the screen. How about the human intelligence? We talked about the emotional intelligence, but how about the human intelligence? Let's look what human intelligence has achieved since the start of the Industrial Revolution. And, you know, that's why we're talking about, when we talk about industrial revolutions, we're talking about the transformation of traditional practices and new technology that starts to be used and that majorly influences our progress, our economical progress, technological progress, our human progress. And of course, that influences also our habits as well. So if we look at our progress since the very start, and we can probably call the invention of the steam engine as the beginning, as the industry 1.0, we can see that many great things have been achieved since. And no doubt, technology has helped us evolve and to progress and to be where we are at right now. Now we are starting to talk about Industry 5.0. And there are some great things. There is a great vision that we attach to it. We talk about the collaboration between humans and robots and digital technologies to create something better together for a more sustainable world and better world for all. That's what the vision can hold for us for the future. And at the same time, you will agree with me that each industrial revolution has also brought certain negative consequences. There was a price to pay for all of our technological progress. And it was because we put the profit at the forefront. The human stayed behind, And we have very serious consequences, such as climate change, and we can talk also about the impact on us humans, on our well-being. So with the Industry 5.0 and with the artificial intelligence, we are also talking about many different fears and many different potential negative consequences. And some of those consequences, potential consequences, are quite rational and they can happen, such as creating more of unemployment, as an example. If we're not ready, if we're not embracing AI, if we are not getting, if we're not doing what we need to do in order to make the technology serve for us and for the better world. And then there are also some other threats that some people are talking about, and it can go to such terrible scenarios as talking about a threat to humanity's existence. So with this, I'd like to invite you to imagine a world where Industry 5.0 and artificial intelligence turns out to serve the humankind and create the scenario on the right. What if it is possible this time to achieve progress without major negative consequences? And I would like to invite you to reflect throughout this webinar. What role does your coaching mindset play in this? And here I'd like to start talking about the adult development theory by Robert Kegan. You may have heard about this theory, and in general, scientists and researchers, everyone is now in agreement that we develop throughout our life. In the past, it was believed that we stop developing our mental complexity at a certain age. Now we know this is not the truth. We continue evolving, we continue growing our mindset. And Robert Kegan is talking about 5 stages of adult development. The first and the second stages. The first stage is called impulsive mind, which is typically early childhood. And the second stage is called the imperial mind, which is typically adolescence. You do not see those stages marked here. Here you see only 3 stages, and there is a reason for that I will share in a moment. So here you see that the third stage, which is called the socialized mind, the fourth stage, self-authoring mind, and the fifth stage, self-transforming mind. Now, the reason why you do not see the first 2 stages is that about 64% of adults do not pass the stage of the socialized mind throughout their journey on this earth. Now, in terms of self-authoring mind, about 35% of adults reach this stage. And then when we talk about the self-transforming mind, only 1% of adults reach this stage. So one thing that I'd like to mention here is that, of course, some people are in between different stages. And it's also important to note that depending on the topic, you may be in one stage concerning one topic and in another adult development stage in terms of another topic or area of your life. And let's look a little bit in more detail what each stage represents. What does it actually mean? So in the socialized mind stage, we essentially have group thinking, and we have people who would like to fit in. It's important for them to follow, to be a good team player. And in a sense, they are codependent on others because what they do, what they feel, what they think is the right thing to do is shaped by definitions and expectations of others. In this actually fourth stage, the self-authoring mind, here we can describe people already as leaders, as they define what is important for them. They already select their own compass. They more focus on solving the problem rather than fitting in. That's what would be in the previous stage. So here we have the focus on problem solving, and the person is quite independent. They have their own moral compass to follow. However, they may be subjective and not open to other points of view. And then the third stage here on the screen, and the fifth stage in terms of Kegan's adult development, is called self-transforming mind. And here we already have meta, leader type of personality, where the person is able to drive the agenda, but also to reset the direction if needed. The person is much more flexible, and they are able to learn and to admit that they are leading and learning at the same time. They're able to hold contradictions and to also have this both end way of thinking. So here we are talking already about finding the root cause of the problems, not only solving the problems as what we talked at the level of self-authoring mind. And so here, I'd like to invite you to take part in another poll. And please do not scan this QR code. I was getting ready to use the Mentimeter, but the technology didn't listen to me in the way that I wished. So I will be sharing with you another poll for you to answer the following question. To what extent do you agree that one of the main objectives in coaching is to help clients shift their mindset to a higher level? And I am about to launch the poll. I hope that you are able to see it on your screens. I see the results coming in. A couple of more seconds. Interesting. Okay, I will end the poll and share with you the results. And here you can see that the majority of people agree that, do you see the results? Yes, the majority of people agree to this statement, and we have one person who does not agree with that. It would be interesting to hear more about the perspective of the person who has indicated that. So if you feel like typing and sharing about your thoughts in the chat function, please feel free to do so. And with this, I'd like to invite you to answer another question. What mind complexity would a coach have to be to help a client move into a higher mindset level? So the majority of you agree that it's important to help clients move into a higher mindset level. So here, looking at Robert Kegan's adult development theory, I will now launch the last poll. And I hope that you can see it on your screens. Let's see what you think. Do you think that a coach should be in the socialized mind complexity, self-authoring, self-transforming, the same mind complexity as a client, or a higher mind complexity? Okay, I see the results coming in. Just a couple of more seconds. Couple of more seconds, I will be sharing with you the results. We have already 84% of the participants who have shared, so I will end the poll and share with you the results. So as you can see, 39% of you thought that a coach should be at the level of self-transforming mind. And then 29% thought that the coach should be at the same mind complexity as their client, and 25% thought that higher complexity mind level than a client. Thank you so much for sharing that. And with this, I would like to suggest that actually coach's mind complexity has to do with their coaching mindset. I believe that you will agree with me on that. And here I'd like to invite you to reflect, what does a coaching mindset mean and how to evolve it? Most of you here are coaches, and most of you are members of the International Coaching Federation or hold a credential from the ICF. So you know that embodying a coaching mindset is one of the ICF core competencies. However, what embodying a coaching mindset means to me? Here I'd like to share with you what it means to me personally, how I view that. And for me, it means being a coach versus doing coaching. And it also means the need to become a better human being, to become a better coach. Because I believe that who you are is how you coach, essentially. So for me, it also translates to the need of becoming more and more self-aware, self-regulated, and to continue my self-development, my growth. For this, I would like to share with you a couple of transactional analysis concepts that can help to evolve coaching mindset further, to also evolve the growth mindset. Because in my definition, growth mindset and coaching mindset has something in common. And so I will be talking about the transactional analysis, and I believe that many of you are familiar with this concept. And for those who are not, I would like to make a brief introduction that transactional analysis is a powerful tool for understanding and improving human relationships. And it was developed by Dr. Eric Berne in the 1950s and 1960s. And it explores how people communicate and interact with one another. And essentially, the ideas of Dr. Eric Berne, 48, developed from Freud's psychoanalytic theory, that childhood experiences greatly impact our lives and as adults, and are the basis for the development of our personalities and psychological or emotional issues that we suffer later in life. And whilst transactional analysis is a psychoanalytic theory, currently there is a wide application of this theory in 4 fields. It is education, organizational development, psychotherapy, and counseling. And I am studying for my certified transactional analyst in education and probably organizational development. So we will be looking at 3 transactional analysis concepts today: frame of reference, life positions, and drama triangle. However, I'd like to share with you what attracted me to transactional analysis. And it was about 2 basic assumptions that describe TA, and it makes it really different from any other psychoanalytic theory. So the first assumption is that people are born okay, and taking the position that I'm okay and you okay is the minimum requirement for any TA work, be it coaching, be it counseling, being psychotherapy, and for lasting emotional and social well-being. And people in emotional difficulties are nevertheless full, intelligent human beings who are capable to make their own choices and act. So you will see that actually it shares with coaching the perspective of entering into an equal partnership where both a client and a coach are resourceful, whole, and complete. So TA really, really resonates with me as a philosophy, as a way, even as a way of being. And so with this, I would like to, first of all, look at this picture here and ask you, is the glass half full or half empty? What is really real? And as you chose different emotions, when you looked at the pictures that you saw in the beginning of this presentation, you will probably also answer this question differently, depending on what is real for you. And one of the reasons for that is the frame of reference. I will talk about frame of reference, and this is, of course, in different modalities, in different concepts, you have similar equivalent concepts, but in transactional analysis, we call it frame of reference, or in other words, also we shorten it for 4. And here, what you have is that at the very core, in the center, you have this open area, which is our capacity to incorporate new information without trying to alter or deflect it. So the frame of reference, it's essentially, perhaps let me take a step back. It's the lens through which we perceive ourselves, others, and the situation, and which is the mechanism by which we sometimes discount certain elements that do not fit our preconceived map of the world. So there is an area in our frame of reference, which is an open area, where we incorporate easily new information because it doesn't clash with our frame of reference. Then we have the area of the light influence, where we will examine new information based on values and assumptions that we already hold, but this is quite light area of influence. So we can still assimilate the new information quite easily. Then the third layer here is the layer of medium influence. This is where the assumptions are often coming from early family settings. And we still remember these things, these different values, different messages, what we should do, what we shouldn't do, certain things that we learned. And we will still reflect about the new coming information. We can still accept it. But that becomes a little bit more difficult because in this area, we are already a little bit more rigid in terms of our frame of reference. And then you have this thick outer layer of deep influences. This is where we have firmly entrenched responses, automatic responses, often outside our awareness. And these are often the responses that actually organize our response to life. And here you have such elements as our cultural and ethnic heritage, religion, family, race, sexuality, decade, right? We talk a lot about different generations, so how that might impact us, history, and so on and so forth. And then finally, here around this frame of reference, you have these arrows that are pointing outside in. So this is where we have these external forces, such as philosophical change, economical change, cultural change, technological change, AI, Industry 5.0. And so what happens is that these outside-in forces, they intrude on all areas of one's frame of reference as well. And here I would like to suggest a hypothesis that deep influence of our frame of reference is the biggest hurdle for 64% of people to move beyond socialized mind and 35% of people to move beyond self-authoring mind. And we will look into that a bit deeper. So we will see what you think about that at the end of this presentation. But to continue the topic of the frame of reference, I'd like just to suggest this picture here, which again just shows in another way how our frame of reference narrows the path through which new information enters our awareness. And so here, I'd like to talk a bit more about what the frame of reference is and how we can start changing it. Because if it is one of the main hurdles, probably there is something that we may need to do with that. So let's talk for a moment about the ego states. So transactional analysis believes that we have 3 different states or ways of being during interaction that we have with others. And those 3 ego states are the child ego state, the parent ego state, and the adult ego state. Essentially, if we look at the child and the parent ego state, these are the things that we have learned in the past or that we have experienced in the past. And in the child, it is about subjective experience of self. So here we are talking about emotions, feelings, impulses, which are nevertheless archaic because we are feeling something now and we believe that we are reacting to the here and now. But very often we are actually just feeling the same what we felt when we were a child. And then in the parent ego state, here we are copying and modeling others. This is also an archaic ego state. And it's about our values, moral principles. It's about also rules. It's also about shoulds and shouldn'ts, do's and don'ts. Also such statement, always, never, and so on and so forth. Now, one thing that I'd like to point out here, that you see green plus and a red minus here, because both in child and in parent ego state, we can tap into the positive aspect of that ego state and into the negative aspect of that ego state. So that's archaic doesn't mean it's bad, but archaic gives us potentially an option to either use it in the positive or in the negative. I will give you an example in a moment. I'd like just to share a bit more about the adult. So the adult ego state that we all have, this is where we process the information in the here and now. And we are much more rational, much more based on the logic, and we mindfully decide from the here and now if it's appropriate to use a child or a parent ego state. And here, that's why I'm using the word integrating adult, because the integrating adult allows us to choose. So our aim should not be to simply become an adult all the time. It's not about just the logical thinking. It's about being an integrated adult in the here and now and choosing our responses, not to the triggers of the past, but to what is actually happening right now. I mentioned to you that there are the positive and the negative aspects of the child and parent ego states. So these could be a couple of examples. Let's look first at the positive example. In the child ego state, I may say, let's celebrate the results we've already accomplished. So it's about celebration, enjoying, and so on and so forth. Now, in the positive adult state, parent state, I would say I must take responsibility for my results. And then in the integrated adult, which doesn't have the green plus and red minus, here, the equivalent statement would be, I have already accomplished X and I still need to finalize Y. Now, looking at the negative aspect of the child, and the following example would serve as a negative way of using the child ego state. I'm so stressed and I keep perfecting my presentation because if I make a mistake, I will be seen as a failure. So this is a reactive mode, reacting to something that feels like a threat. And then if we look at the parent state, here probably we remember something that we believe that we learned in the childhood from our role models. For instance, you should never make mistakes. And in the integrated adult, the question would be, how good is good enough for this occasion? So at any moment in time, we have these three ego states operating within us. And it's just about being mindful that we are being in the integrated adult, in the here and now, and we are reacting and we are choosing the response to the situation rather than that we are responding rather than reacting. And when we look at the frame of reference, the frame of reference essentially is like the skin, which is surrounding the three ego states, because essentially it's a set of associated responses integrating these different ego states. And what we do in response to a specific stimuli. And as I mentioned to you, if we are not aware, not reacting to the here and now, maybe we are not responding, maybe we're reacting from the negative child or parent ego state. And here, one more thing that I'd like to suggest is that in the frame of reference, you have the positive aspects that we would have learned. It's about accounting for all aspects of ourselves, others, and situations in the here and now, stepping into our power, taking our responsibility and acting accordingly. And we also have these negative aspects where we are essentially discounting certain aspects of the reality, certain aspects of ourselves, of the other, or the situation. And this discounting that we learned through the child or parent ego state, this discounting, essentially, it forms the basis for our limiting beliefs and behaviors that we learn from our parents. And essentially, if we think about the frame of reference, it's also about answering the questions. Who am I? How do I know I exist? Right? So that helps us to see the world, the lens through which we see and experience the world. So how do we change the internal frame of reference, especially for the discounts, for those aspects that form our limiting beliefs? And essentially what happens is that our child ego state becomes uncomfortable with the present frame of reference as the very first step. Then our child ego state seeks adults' information and or parents' permission, the permission from the parent ego state. And we can change our internal frame of reference, and the change will be successful only if we integrate the new definitions of our frame of reference into all three ego states. So not only the thinking, mental aspect, which is very much linked to adult and also to parent, believing, right? Believing what's right, but also feeling, actually at the level of feeling what I feel is right to do. And with this, where do we start? How does that look like in reality? I would like to suggest that in terms of the first step is to start asking, what do I really feel about this? Or it can be that you're asking your clients, what do you really feel about this? How would I like to feel instead? What do I need? Because I probably feel something, and especially if it's a negative emotion, because probably a certain need of mine has not been met. Then in terms of integrating that into the adult state, it's about asking, what do I know for sure when my assumption is not true? What would take me towards the direction of my goals if I did not have difficult thoughts and feelings that I may be experiencing in my child ego state? And then in terms of the parent ego state, it's about starting to ask yourself, what story am I telling to myself? What permissions do I need to give myself in order to go towards the direction of my goals? So it's very often about giving yourself the permission of something that you were not permitted to do when you were a child, or that you thought that you were not allowed. So it's about giving yourself a permission to do that what no longer feels comfortable for you. So it's about making sure that all these three elements are integrated, which allows then for a successful change. With this, I would like to move to the next slide, and I would like to talk about the life positions. Now, when we look at the transactional analysis, explains how the decisions about ourselves, our world, and our relationships with others crystallized, and typically that this is done during our first 5 years of life. And these decisions are based on the pattern of strokes of certain recognition certain things that we receive from our parents and primary caregivers. And these decisions that we take lead to our acceptance of one of 4 basic existential or psychological life positions, which then determine how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. It's interesting that life positions don't have much to do with the reality. It's much more how we experience and see the reality. So the first life position is, I am okay, you okay. And this life position that you see here in yellow is essentially about me respecting myself and respecting you. And it's about the position that we both count and we are at the same level of partnership. We co-create. And that very much fits to the coaching mindset, right? That we are both perfect, whole, and complete. And that's this life position where we are problem solvers. We have can-do attitude. And you see the 2 pluses to also express that I'm okay and you okay. And if I look from this position, it means that I respond as an adult, as an integrated adult in the here and now. And it also means that my frame of reference is okay, and your frame reference is okay, even though it's different. However, when I react from one of the other 3 positions, which is I'm not okay, you okay, I am okay, you are not okay, or neither I am okay nor you are okay, then it is a good indication that I am transported back to a traumatic experience in the past. And here it's very likely that you see those minuses, that I'm also discounting. I'm discounting myself or the other or part of our reality. And I'm filtering out something that doesn't fit in my frame of reference. And of course, if we look at I am not okay, you okay attitude, here we have someone who's blaming themselves. It is about assuming the victim mentality. If we're looking about I'm okay, you are not okay, it is an aggressive attitude, blaming others. It is about competing, criticizing. And very often, these positions are interchangeable. Very often, someone who is assuming this position, I'm okay, you are not okay, they are shifting into this. I'm not okay and you okay. And this becomes like the cover only. And then, of course, we have this position, I'm not okay and you are not okay. This is a depressive attitude, and it's about giving up. It's about getting nowhere, essentially. And one thing that I'd like to suggest here is that when we are very conscious about our choice for our life position, we may have a preference for one of these positions, because that's, especially in the stressful situations, our preferences will show up. However, when we are much more conscious about the life position that we are choosing, then we can really respond to the situations from the here and now. And my suggestion here would be that then we are indeed becoming these meta leaders, multi-frame, interdependent, where we can hold contradictions, where we can think from the perspective of polarity point of view, where we can have both end perspective. So where do we start? And my suggestion would be to start with a reflection. What is my default life position when I am stressed or challenged? And another element here is to also be very proactive. Check in. What's your life position? What do you feel about a certain situation? And set your intention for I'm okay, you're okay. Before, during, and after challenging meetings and situations, coaching sessions even. What's the inner game that's happening for you at any given time? Set that intention for I'm okay and you okay. And then even during a coaching session, you might hold a question to yourself. What life position is my client in? And how can I support, challenge them to shift to that I am okay, you are okay position? So these would be a couple of practical questions of how you can start moving into I'm okay and you okay. I call it life philosophy. It has become a life philosophy for me. And I will share with you that actually this is something that I use very often in the beginning of the day, in the morning. I set my intention. Today I'm going to look at the world through I'm okay, you okay. I do set this intention before difficult meetings. And I believe that it does make a difference. And so I would like to move forward and talk a little bit about the third TA concept, which is called the drama triangle. You may have heard about Stephen Karpman and his drama triangle, and I will share with you what that is. Essentially, there are different games that very often people play, and I'm using the term game on purpose. You may have heard about the book that Eric Berne wrote, The Games People Play. So what we do when we want to get certain recognition, certain strokes, when we feel that I'm not okay, you okay, or you okay, I'm not okay, those life positions, we tend to enter into certain dynamics during our interactions with other people. And so what happens is that there are three roles that we very often get into. And what's interesting that it doesn't matter what context we're talking about. You will see those games happening in families, in the workplace, at school, between friends. It happens all the time. And essentially what happens is that in an interaction with another person, we may assume a role where we want to help the other person. Very often it happens with another person discounting part of their ability to react, to respond to the situation, their ability to do anything about their situation. And very often we step into a rescuer role. We want to help them. And we think it's a nice thing to do. And then what happens is that when that game starts, and the indication of the drama triangle is if one of the people are not coming from this I'm okay, you okay position. So there is an invitation very often from the victim. And then when other people are entering the drama triangle, they're usually also entering with that position of one of us not being okay. And here, what I'd like to share is that the victim feels helpless, discounts self and own resources, and in a certain way, they approach the situation in this way because they look to have a confirmation of their powerlessness. It's quite a depressive position to be, as a matter of fact. And it's interesting that victim typically does less than 50% of work that they would have to account for and that they would have to do. But we have the rescuer who steps in and takes too much responsibility for others. And in that sense, they discount the power of others. They discount the other person. They're not coming from the perspective, I'm okay, you okay. However, from the perspective of one up, I'm okay, and you are not okay. And then the persecutor, here we have this belief in the ability to make others do things, and the persecutor assumes the superior position, putting down feelings and value of other people. And so I will just share with you that one more thing, that typically you will have one role that will be your preferred role. But it doesn't mean that you're gonna only stay with that role. Let's assume that your preferred role is rescuer. However, this is called a game, and the game is partially because you are likely to switch the position during that game. So if you started off as a rescuer, helping someone, and trying to solve the problem for them, at certain point you may switch to a persecutor, blaming that person that they are not able to do anything that they said they're gonna do. And then victim may also switch, let's say, to persecutor, or at certain point even the rescuer. And the rescuer may also end up as a victim. And one thing that it's important to note here is that in the helping professions, we talk so much about our interest to help others. And here the importance is just to make sure that when we choose to help others, to contribute to making this world a better place, that we are not starting off from this position. I'm okay, you're not okay. And so here I'd like to suggest an alternative. And an alternative is something that is called the winner's triangle and also the empowerment dynamic. I blended the two here. So it is about stepping into a different dynamic where we see victim move into creator mode, persecutor into challenger, and rescuer into coach. And you will all say that, well, yeah, of course, coaching, that's what we should be doing instead of rescuing, right? And at the same time, here I'm again just saying that it's about some subtle things sometimes, and that we need to check in with our life positions, that we're really coming from the perspective of the coach. Here, the major difference is that we are coming from this I'm okay, you're okay perspective. And the creator here is vulnerable, voicing own feelings, asking for what they need, and they do more than 50%. Whilst the challenger is assertive and powerful, they're able to negotiate and define the boundaries, be clear on the expectation, what needs to happen. And then if we look at the coach, it is about being caring and responding to a real need after asking for permission. How can I help? Can I help? Rather than jumping and doing something for someone. And here it is about supporting others instead of doing things for others and doing less than 50% of work. What's important to note here is that if we look at the drama triangle, here we are talking about very often something that is called codependency, because for us to feel better, we need someone who feels worse. And vice versa, sometimes we are just codependent on the help of others. And here I'd like to mention that the move from the drama triangle, essentially, the way I see it, that it's the move from being codependent to being independent, and finally to being interdependent, to communicate with others in an authentic way, which allows a true deep intimacy and allows to be assertive for what we need and allows to meet the real needs. So one more thing that I'd like to mention here is that when we react from the drama triangle, it's very often because we're driven by fear and we are reacting. It's a knee-jerk reaction. So where do we start? Where do we start changing this dynamic? We start about asking ourselves. It all starts with the awareness. In difficult situations, in stress, what roles on the drama triangle do I tend to take? Another question, how my preferred role on the drama triangle may have impacted my choice for a helping profession. It's a reflection point for all of us. During a coaching session, what role is my client taking and how can I support challenge them to shift to the winner's triangle or to the empowerment dynamic? And finally, after a coaching session, how much have I stayed in the winner triangle? That's a question as well to reflect. And finally, the final question that I missed here is how can I stay in the winner's triangle in coaching and in life in general? So here I'd like to suggest, now having shared with you about the transactional analysis concept, I'd like to suggest the following point of view, that when I bring my discounts, including the roles that I tend to take on the drama triangle, from the deep influence area of my frame of reference to my awareness, and when I commit to change, when I open my frame of reference or to I'm okay and you okay, even if your frame of reference is different, then I can account for my power. I can step into my power and optimally use my human intelligence to influence philosophical, economical, cultural, technological change inside out. And in this way, I can serve the humanity for a better and more sustainable world. So here, the whole idea is that our change, doing something at that micro level, we can influence the macro level as well. It all starts with us. And bringing this all back to the adult development theory, I would just like to suggest that those steps that I shared with you and those TA concepts, and we can use different concepts from different schools of thought, but those ones that I was suggesting, that they are, as a matter of fact, the keys for you to start moving to a higher level of mind complexity and to grow to that self-transforming mind level. And I would like to share with you this quote from Albert Einstein: "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. We must learn to see the world anew." I would like to suggest that what it means to see the world anew is really to go beyond our own frame of reference and to step into the life position of I'm okay and you okay, despite us having different frames of reference. And with this, I'd like to invite you to imagine a world where Industry 5.0 and artificial intelligence turns out to create the scenario on the right. So what if this time we can get it right? And what role does your coaching mindset play in this? Thank you for being here till the end of the session. And with this, I would like to invite any questions, any comments from you.
Oh, that was a very heavy subject, Jurgita. So, if you have any question, please unmute yourself and you can ask the question.
Thank you, Jurgita. A lot to reflect on. I'm going to ask, there's a couple of points in the chat box. Maybe we'll start with that. I think Odile had a question about, as an adult, mainly operating from the ego state. Is that the question, Odile? Or the adult is very conscious of his ego state? Yeah.
Raj, can I ask you to repeat the question? It was breaking, the connection.
So actually, it's not a question. The adult is very conscious of own ego, correct? That was the question.
Absolutely. The adult is conscious about what's happening and that they may be triggered by the past and feeling something as a reaction to the past rather than to what is happening here and now. And the integrated adult is making a choice to respond to the situation rather than to react. So yes, the adult, when we are in the integrated adult ego state, we're very, very conscious and we are very aware of what's happening within us and outside.
Vijay, you had some comment.
Jurgita, I'm going to ask, I think Vijay has posted a very interesting comment. I'll read it verbatim. She says, I was the one, in relation to adult development theory, I was the one who didn't agree necessarily as one of the objectives being to shift to a higher mindset. I felt so because it entirely depends on what the client goals and their desired outcomes are. And there should not be any assumption about this in coaching.
That's a very interesting point of view, and thank you, Vijay, for sharing. It's indeed, when we think about coaching relationship, there are some topics when our clients bring into our coaching conversation where the client will not have major difficulty to achieve a goal. Where we will be working with a client, they will set the goal for themselves, and we will work together, and the client will move forward. The issue happens when the client has already tried multiple times to achieve it, and it's not working, and they are in a relationship in this, they're doing the coaching work, and they nevertheless still struggle. Because when that happens, typically that's an indication that a deeper work needs to happen, and a deeper work in terms of growing the mindset further, dealing with certain limiting beliefs and discounts. So even if the change can happen for them with lots of effort, without dealing with the deeper level, it is not going to be sustainable. I agree with Vijay completely that not every coaching engagement will be about growing the mindset. However, we need to look at the actual topic, and if the client has been struggling and is struggling, then it's very likely about growth mindset, something a little bit deeper.
Thanks, Jurgita. And I see a comment from Vijay. I think she got some audio challenges, but she's saying, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay.
Do we have
any other questions?
Please.
I had just wanted to kind of comment, Natarajan and Jurgita, if I may. So many things, wide topic, Jurgita, but I think what struck me, I think, was the way that you're defining or kind of linking coaching mindset to a growth mindset as a default kind of approach that both coach should take and maybe move the client toward. But the other thing, when you talked about the winner's triangle, and it's been a long time since we were exposed to transactional TA concepts, right? But what really kind of resonated when you talked about the three aspects of creator, coach, and challenger, almost seemed to be that that's what you are very much trying to go into any coaching engagement with that approach, right? You want to co-create positive outcome from a, I'm okay, you're okay journey. And then as a coach, you want to be supportive, caring, empathetic, and you also want to be challenging. You want to kind of challenge assumptions, call out possible blind spots. So I think that really resonated and sat well. So thank you for bringing in that perspective as well.
You're very welcome, Raj, and indeed it is about embracing that empowerment dynamics, the winner's triangle, and indeed being in that, coming from that okay perspective. And I find that triangle, the inverted triangle, the empowerment dynamics, it so much represents and reflects the coaching, what the coaching mindset is and what it should be. And it's something that we can apply in coaching. But again, I'm very much of applying this as the life philosophy. Coaching is the life philosophy for me. So taking also these concepts and applying in our daily life as well.
Thanks, Jurgita. There's one more question from Zahia in the chat. If you don't mind, Jurgita, just a quick clarification for I am okay, you are okay, coach client.
Would you like me to go to the actual slide?
It might help, I think. Zahia, if you're still on, please feel free to clarify, or yeah, she's saying yes, please.
Okay, so I understand that the question is about this last point. During a coaching session, what life position is my client in, and how can I support, challenge them to shift to the I'm okay, you okay position? Did I understand correctly?
Zahia, is that correct? You can unmute yourself and please feel free to.
Hi, Jurgita. Yeah.
Hi.
Sorry, I think I misunderstood, because when I said I'm okay, you are okay, me as a coach, I am okay, and the client is okay. The concepts I didn't understand well, but now when you read again, it's other thing. It means, how can I challenge my clients to a position where he saw himself, or he will see himself okay, and other people or other stuff okay. Could you, you can, you can.
I can elaborate. I can elaborate a little more. So the starting point is indeed that I am okay, you're okay. I am okay as a coach, and I accept that we are there in equal partnership. I view you as my equal. We are both okay. However, very often in coaching conversations, we can start hearing certain hints that may indicate that whilst I am viewing my client as okay, my client is assuming one of the other three positions. One of the other three positions that is discounting part of the reality. Very often you can hear people saying, yes, but, right? They say something and you may summarize it back, and then you hear all of a sudden, yes, but. Very often when you hear yes, but, there is a discount of what's happening, of the reality. So it's just about noticing, whilst you take that perspective that my client is okay, it's about inviting the client to take that position, and sometimes challenging them to take that position. And not challenging them from the drama triangle, but from the winner's triangle, as a coach and as a challenger. Does that clarify? Does that respond to your question?
Yes, Jurgita, thank you. Yeah. Sometimes our clients are not okay because of challenges or obstacles, and we have to stand in the triangle of winners and help them to shift their thinking to creative thinking. Thank you, Jurgita. Thank you.
Absolutely. I love it, what you've just said, to help them shift their thinking to creative thinking, to help them find their own resourcefulness. Right, to help them find their resourcefulness, and they are not feeling okay, as you're saying, but just from that perspective that you view them as okay, and you help them shift that into a more resourceful place.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Vijay had a comment. Beauty of coaching as a helping profession is the partnership that lies at its core. If we as coaches don't lose sight of this, we will also begin with the right positions.
Yeah, completely agree with Vijay's words. It's about the partnership. And for me, that's why I call life positions as the philosophy behind, well, for me, it's a life philosophy, but also the philosophy that is very close to what can be described as a coaching mindset, that partnership, the very core of our coaching profession.
Any other questions? Jurgita, from this picture, I would like to ask you, these three states that sometimes you find your clients, and moving them to the problem solver, I'm okay, you are okay, quadrant. So, which one is very difficult?
I would say that when we encounter someone who is in this quadrant, I'm not okay and you are not okay, the depressive life position, that could be a signal that coaching is not necessarily what is going to help them. I think we need to be always mindful about the contracts that we agree for our coaching engagements. And if someone is coming with this position, depends on the topic on which they're working, but sometimes it could be an indication that actually you may need to refer the person somewhere else. And sometimes you may have the person coming from with this position as well, when there is lack of engagement, because it's a coaching engagement that is sponsored by the third party for corrective measures, for instance, in the organizations as well. So then that becomes a difficult one, how you're working through that and with that. And it's sometimes about really calling things out. And just making sure that you're in the winner's triangle and that you are a challenger and you are also a caring coach and help the person move towards. However, I would say that the other two life positions can be equally difficult. And it again depends how deep the discount is. And sometimes you can move forward during a coaching session and you can do lots of work. And when it is at a very, very deep level, well, sometimes it's important for people to also seek other help, psychotherapy, for instance.
Okay. Good. So, do we have any other questions? Thank you. So, quick summary of what we have gone through. Was a very, very deep learning. I think people are still introspecting and reflecting on what they have learned. Your initial starting of putting that picture of human to human relationship and the human to robot relationship, and when he asked us to rate on the emotions that comes to us, was very interesting. Almost it's the same interaction. Only thing, instead of human, there was a shift of robo, and how we interpreted the emotion differently was very interesting learning. And when you said AI can learn emotional intelligence, but it cannot replace a human-to-human connection, and it cannot share an authentic human experience, was a great learning for me. It was very, very well presented. It was the way it was presented. Okay. Then you discussed about the 3 plateaus of adult mental adult development theory. Very interesting. And rightly said, only 1% of the human adult population reached the level of meta leader. That's very good. And your 3 TA concepts of frame of reference, where you mentioned how the different forces act on the frame of reference and how they play a major role, and how it gets into a light influence to medium influence to deep influence. Very interesting. We are very familiar with PAC, but your integrating adult was something new that we learned today. Thank you. Here and now response of the adult versus copying and modeling others of the parent, and subjective experience of the child. The life positions were very interesting. And yes, as a coach, our job is to move people to the I am okay, you are okay quadrant. That's the success of coaching. That was very interesting. And moving from a drama triangle to this winner's triangle was very interesting. The 3 positions of persecutor, receiver, victim, to a creator, challenge, and coach. How do we move ourselves? How do I create my coaching mindset prepared for the session is something that's very interesting that we learned. Thank you. I think I summarized. Is there anything that if you would like to share? It's open. And last few words before we close the session. I would request people to give your feedbacks. And if you need CCUs, fill the form with opening and closing passcodes. And CCUs will be processed as and when we get a confirmation from ICF for the core competency CCUs. Over to you, Jurgita, for your final comments.
Thank you so much, Natarajan, for summarizing. I think it was a brilliant summary of what we were talking here together over the past 1 hour or so. I would just like to again thank everyone for your participation. If you would like to learn more about TA concepts, I'm very passionate about it. Feel free to reach out to me directly. Always happy to engage in discussions with you. And to close from my side, I would like to wish all of you a beautiful seasonal holiday and a wonderful year that is coming and knocking on the door, a year of growth, of opportunities and abundance. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Jurgita, and thank you everyone for joining us.